Narelle.
Hey, Dionte.
Welcome to my podcast, Journey to DevelopHer. I definitely had to bring you on. You are a female developer in my area, and I'm just, I admire you and everything that you do for our community. So welcome to my podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Narelle, tell us a little bit about your background.
So you mentioned that I'm a developer in your area, but I'm actually originally from New York. So I spent most of my childhood in the Bronx, actually. And it was 5 of us, my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, just being a family. As a matter of fact, I come from a pretty large family. So my mom is one of 11 children, and my dad is one of 9. And then you can imagine how many offspring comes from a family that size. But yeah, it was just the 5 of us living in Bronx, being a family, pretty quiet childhood.
Also, do you currently reside in New Jersey?
Yeah, I've lived here for about 12 years now.
Awesome.
In South Orange.
Awesome. And you live in the East Orange area, you said?
I'm in South Orange.
Oh, South Orange. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm in East Orange. So that's great. We're both Jersey, we'll say, developers at this moment. And can you tell us about one of your first real estate transactions?
So there's a story behind that, actually. So like I mentioned, I was living in New York, and I was living in an apartment that at the time I was renting for about $800 a month. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, which probably can't find that anywhere right now. And I remember telling myself, because there was a rent increase every year, I remember telling myself that as soon as this rent hits $1,000, I'm gone. And that's essentially what I did. So at the time, I was looking for 3-unit homes in New Jersey to live in and rent out the other 2 units. And I was looking for a while. And this was in 2006, I started looking. And for some reason, I just couldn't find anything that I thought was livable enough for me. And so I said, you know what, if this really doesn't work out, then I think I'm just going to make the decision and purchase a single family home instead. And that's what I did. So in 2008, I purchased a single family home in South Orange. I still live in the same house, as a matter of fact. South Orange is a great area.
Yeah.
But I say that to say also that if I had stuck with moving into a multifamily at the time and renting a 2-unit, I probably would be yards away from where I am right now, because what kind of resulted from that is what people are calling BRRRR, right? The BRRRR strategy: buy, rehab, rent, refi, and you repeat. Mm-hmm. And so that took me back about 5 years, but I really don't regret that, because, I did become a homeowner, and I took that 5 years to just educate myself on what being a real estate investor is, what that would look like, and taking the steps to actually get to that point finally, which I did in 2014.
Awesome. And I think that's incredible. At least you had the proper mindset going into becoming an investor. Mm-hmm. And I think mindset is very important. I feel a lot of people have a lot of fear, even just taking that first step to become a homeowner in general. I commend you for, taking that step and then eventually going into investing, you would say, right? Building your portfolio.
Yes.
Awesome. When it comes to mindset, what type of mindset you think an individual should have stepping into real estate?
It should definitely be a positive mindset. Not to say that there won't be negative things or unforeseen things that occur, but real estate investors should really kind of step out knowing that whatever they do not know, they will either learn, right, whether it's the hard way or or some other way, but that, the information and the next move will come to them. They just really have to take that first step. So having a positive mindset is definitely important. Knowing that also failure is definitely, I can guarantee failure. Let's just say that. I will be frank. I can guarantee failure, but knowing that along that way there will also be successes. So as long as those successes outweigh the failures, that's really the ultimate goal, right? Because it's a learning process. And the name of your podcast is Journey to DevelopHer, right? And so there was a journey in that process, that failing process, and failing your way to success, as they say.
I agree. And many of my failures during the beginning of my investing career actually led me to being a developer. A lot of people know that I started out as an agent and I became a paralegal. And then ultimately I started wholesaling. And I had a really bad wholesaling transaction. And I lost like $40,000 on this deal. I mean, I didn't lose it, but it was money that didn't come into my pocket. Like I was set to make $40,000 on a transaction. And I had with that seller like 12 houses under contract. And I'm not going to get into the full story. I mean, I did it on another podcast, but basically I was circumvented during that transaction. That seller took all of her deals away from me. It was a nightmare. But that made me realize I was selling out my community to people that were not from my community, to people that doesn't care about my community, that they just want to milk our communities for what it's worth, and then even tell you can't live in my house. So that kind of changed my perspective on being an investor, really building up my community the best way I knew how, taking control over I'm not going to say who's allowed, but who is allowed to buy in my community, revitalize my community. And I was like, that person could be me. I'm the one finding the deals anyway. So let me work on finding the money, right, to invest in these deals. And that kind of changed the whole narrative, like who I began renting to. I had tenants that I was able to help. I worked a lot with homeless families, and it was just an amazing mind shift, just that bad deal. So again, that situation, that failure propelled me to what I believe my calling was to do.
That's really a good example because I think when people really get into it, they'll realize, you know what, I made a mistake. It may have cost me financially. My ego might be a little, hurt at the moment, but I'm not dead. Like I can actually do it again and make sure that I don't make the same mistakes. And so that's the beauty of it. You can kind of regroup, catch yourself, and move forward.
Yep, awesome. And ultimately, there was a lot of light in that dark period I felt like I was going through. So I'm happy I was able to see the light, the bigger picture, the message that God may have been trying to tell me at the time. So I thought that was amazing. And even in that moment, I found a real estate partner who was also a female investor. And she really had my back. She was like, here's my private money lender. Let's start closing on some deals. And me and her built this sisterhood and partnership. And I always like to ask, have you ever had anybody on your journey that helped you, or do you have a real estate partner?
I don't have a partner. I have not partnered on any deals yet. And that's not for lack of trying, but it just didn't work out that way. Have I had help from others? Absolutely. Because, there were times in my path on my journey where I just needed to ask for help. And so I sought the assistance that I felt that I needed, which turned out to be really beneficial in order to help me move forward and complete projects, etc. So in terms of partnerships, no, not yet. But if I were to partner, and this is actually something that did cross my lap, but it just did not come to fruition, I would not be opposed to partnering with a general contractor. Okay. And the way that would work, at least with my development deals, is this would have to be a GC who has a significant amount of credit available to him that he could tap into. So essentially, he would serve as the lender of sorts. Okay. And he could charge me as a developer a certain interest rate on top of what he might be paying on his line of credit. Right. I would see the project through to fruition, and we would split the profits at the end. But the benefit of that is, one, he would have more of a vested interest in the deal, right? He's not just coming on as a vendor or someone who's providing a service, but he actually has vested interest in seeing the project through to completion because his profit is dependent on that. So that's the type of partnership that I would probably consider. And then also, if I were to have a really large deal where the margins were pretty significant, I wouldn't mind partnering with someone on that as well, and kind of sharing both the costs as well as the rewards.
Yeah, I think that's a very clever idea. How do you normally find the funding for your project? One, I want to say I admire you even more because you do work a 9 to 5, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so that's amazing. And a lot of people in this real estate industry, a lot of these newbies and other investors, they glorify, oh, I don't have to work for nobody and yada, yada, yada. Why do you think it is important to keep your 9 to 5 until, I mean, I'm sure at some point you will be able to retire if you choose to, but how has keeping your 9 to 5 helped you become a real estate developer?
Well, besides taking up a lot of my time, it does help me keep grounded, because in investing and developing, there is a lot of planning that takes place, right? And that takes time. Sometimes, a year or 2 years, depending on the size of the project. And if you do not have your business set up correctly, where you have a lot of cash flow coming in to be able to pay for all of your living expenses, for example, you'd be SOL, essentially. And so... yes, absolutely. And so what do you do in the meantime, right? A lot of people have to work. And so for me, I am really actually gracious and thankful that I have a 9 to 5, and I've had a 9 to 5 essentially my entire working life. I actually work in the corporate space. And with that, I'm able to tap into my 401k, which I've done. I've been really creative. I've been able to take out personal loans if I needed to. I've been able to establish business lines of credit. I've been able to increase my own personal credit lines. I've been able to use that income to show to a lender that I am a stable person. And that's actually really helped me a lot. So it actually boosts my my profile, I would say, in the investment space when speaking with lenders and consultants and things like that. So they see the income, they see that it's coming in every month, they see the amount, and they're saying, okay, this is someone that I could more than likely safely lend money to, and they would pay me back.
I do realize that those are all different streams of income through real estate, and for all of the incomes, even as a general contractor, I forgot to add, that was a stream of income that helped me and my fiance a lot during COVID. At the beginning of COVID, I was not showing anyone anything. Okay, I had people calling me for houses, rentals, you name it. I refused to go outside. So luckily, a lot of our projects were still going on, and everything was calculated correctly, where you can make money on your rehab and all that good stuff. And we also work on others' projects as well, so that kept the cash flow coming in. How do you feel about being a female in this male-dominated industry? Or is that even an obstacle for you?
Oh, it's definitely an obstacle. Not for me, for the men in the industry.
Good answer. Okay. Definitely a great answer.
They just can't get over the fact that I'm in charge. And that's fine. I'm fine with that. So how do I feel? Well, I ignore them because I have what is ultimately at the forefront of my mind, which is the completion of a project. I have money tied up in these projects, time tied up in these projects, and I've hired them for a service, and they are typically men, and that's fine. I've hired them for a service, and so really setting the expectation for how I would like the project to go, being communicative, following up constantly, doing my part to ensure that success of the project is really all that I can control, especially where gender is concerned. Because a lot of times, people think that they can get away with certain things because of their gender and mine. Right. And so that's really it in a nutshell. It's really for them to get over and for me to move forward with, because my gender is not going to change. And right. Theirs certainly isn't, or may not.
Right. Yeah, literally. I've come across that same type of issue. They don't really like the idea that, you know, a female is telling them what to do. And we're not going to male bash or anything, but they also don't like, or they feel you need me to do this. And I'm like, kind of don't need you for anything. You know, just like how I found you, I can replace you, you know. There's a lot of other people that I could work with, and it has to just be that mutual level of respect. But I've come across those type of attitudes or prideful, I don't know, mindsets from some of our counterparts. But some of them, they admire what I do. They do realize that I am a team with my fiance. So that kind of helps. But sometimes he even tells them she's the boss. You gotta listen to her. You gotta ask her. But I do realize what it is when it's happening. And so let's talk about some of your projects that you're working on, or you have. Well, let's talk about what you have worked on or have developed over the last couple of years, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I stepped into development actually after investing in buy and hold properties in Newark. At the moment, I strictly focus in Newark for various reasons, but one of the main reasons is because it's right in my backyard. For people who are unfamiliar with this area, Newark, South Orange, East Orange, we all, you know, border each other. We have boundaries that touch. And so it just made sense. It's close to home. I can get to my projects quickly. And then also the market was a market that I could afford to invest in.
Right.
With regards to development, I focus on small residential homes, and what that is 2 or 3 family homes, at least at the moment. I haven't done any single family homes yet. I likely probably won't because Newark has mostly multi-units properties, and it's a big rental area. And so, you know, you stick with what the market pretty much dictates, which is 2, 3, 4 family homes. And then, of course, there are also larger multifamilies in the city. My first project was a 2-family home.
Okay.
In what people consider to be a fairly rough area. I actually stepped out on my own. So not only have I not had partners, but for every deal that I've done, which I have to say are not many, but they've been quality.
Right.
It was just me. So I was the face. I was doing the property management for my buy and holds. I was the one who found, you know, the funds. I was the one who screened the tenants, showed them the apartments. I was the one who collected the rent. I was the one who went through evictions if I needed to, at least for my buy and holds. And then for my development projects, it's the same. Single member LLC deals where I'm the one who is getting funding and doing all of the hiring and ensuring that the project goes smoothly, which sometimes never happens. But I'm the face essentially for my projects. So my first project was a 2-family home. And that project took longer than it was supposed to, and it cost me more than it was supposed to.
Okay. Do you mind going over the numbers? Just so, you know, the audience could get an idea of what goes into a development project. What are you doing to analyze the numbers? How much you bought the lot for? The cost to build? The returns, if you don't mind sharing.
So with that project, because it took so long, I would have to cough that up to an outlier. Right? And kind of start fresh with the next project, knowing that I have like a better team in place and I know what I'm doing now. But what I can tell you is that I bought the land for $16,000.
Okay.
And I bought the land before I even knew anything about development. I wanted to just try it. I wanted to just try it. I had been investing in Newark for some time, and I wanted to build my portfolio up, but the properties that I was seeing just weren't up to par. I really like to think that I'm purchasing properties or building properties that I myself would live in. And so I said, you know what, I'll try a development. So I started looking for lots. So this first lot I purchased for $16,000. Did my education, you know, hired an architect, got plans together, and then still kind of sat because I was scared.
Right. And that's fair. That's fair. But you took the first step, you know?
Scared. I was like, Narelle, do you really want to do this? And I did. So I got the architect and started learning the building and the building process, you know, liaising with people within City Hall, making sure that I knew who the players were, that sort of thing. And then I went out and I got a referral for general contractors. So 16,000. The contract was for 275,000 to build at the time. And let's just say that that's not what happened. My appraisal came in at the time low, actually, because I was looking forward. Like, I knew what Newark was going to look like in the next 1 to 2 years. And a lot of appraisers come from other communities and they stereotype, right? And at the time, actually, there was not a lot of new construction going on. So they were pulling from new construction from across the city, in the North Ward, for example, where we know that the neighborhoods are a little bit different, and then reducing the appraisal amount. So those were some of the factors that I had to consider in that first deal.
Right.
And of course, that affected the loan that I was able to get, the loan amount that I was able to get. So in a nutshell, I did ultimately sell that property for $375,000. It would have been a buy and hold. Actually, I intended to keep it, but because it took too long, there were delays, and also I had outlaid so much money that I wanted to recoup it quicker. Right. I ultimately sold the property. Sold the property for $375,000. I did walk away with some money, which is good.
So that I was about to say, that was, as long as you're not in a negative, that's a win. You did it.
It got done.
It was a win. I think that's amazing.
For first project, yeah, it was a good learning experience. I mean, I really went to school on that one.
Good.
It was an expensive schooling.
I bet. So since then, and what year was that in?
That was 2017, 2018. I actually went through a few general contractors on that project too.
Oh no, tell us about that. How did you know you had to fire the first one is the real question.
I
said, how did you know you had to fire the first contractor is the real question.
Well, it's interesting because that general contractor was actually a referral from someone who is well connected within the political world. And so you can imagine that when this person contacted me and said, hey, you know what, I know I referred you to this contractor, but I need to show you something that they've done on a property, and I just got wind of this information. So we went back into another property that they were working on actively, and there was just so many mistakes. Wow. I had to get rid of him because he would have bungled my project for sure.
Well, at least he was honest to tell you that I don't think you should move forward with him. Check out what he's doing over here. So that was a blessing, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was something that I definitely avoided, thankfully.
Right. So then you had to find another contractor.
Found another contractor who was also a referral and had to fire him as well.
No, I hate that. Oh gosh. Yeah, it's bad.
But I fired him after he'd already completed some of the work.
Okay.
Yeah, that just didn't really work out. It brings me to the point that yes, you're failing your way through to success. Yes, you're making mistakes along the way.
Right.
But having a team in place that is really going to operate with integrity, that they are going to communicate with you, that they're going to be honest. It's so important. And a lot of times you just can't detect that when you're looking for people. And I'm sure they're, very senior developers, people who've been in the game for decades, that sometimes there are things that just kind of happen to them and they're like, what did I miss? So,
right.
I say that to say for newbies out there who are making mistakes, it's okay. Like it happens even to the most seasoned developers as well.
Yep. And I mean, at least you have the willpower to keep moving. Like you got it done. Ultimately, you had to, unfortunately, go through a few contractors, but you still got it done. You didn't give up. You could have just said, man, forget this. But you was like, nope, I'm going to see it to the end. You made it to the finish line. You were able to sell it, make a profit. And you went on to, did you build any other houses after that, or you're working on your next project now?
I'm actually working on my next project now.
Which I love the renderings for. It's a beautiful house. I actually saw it. I've seen it since last year. And I even was like, well, who's this architect and who did the rendering? So it was great. And I'm sure it's going to be a great project, but I'll let you finish.
Yeah, thank you. I actually really take a lot of pride in having a vision for what my properties would look like as well. And like I said, these are properties that I would want to live in myself. And so I'm working on that project right now. And in the process, I'm pushing myself and I'm saying, you know what, Narelle, let's see how much more you can scale. The first project kind of set you back a little bit. But now, in addition to the one that I'm actively working on, I have another 3 that I'm planning. There will be 3 families in Newark as well, in the West Ward. And the goal is to see whether or not I can build all 3 at the same time. They're on the same block. And so that's really something that I'm pushing myself to complete simultaneously.
That's beautiful. And how important do you think it is for you to be, one, active in the neighborhood, knowing what's going on politically in your community? How does that play into development? How do you think the two correlate, or why is it important?
It's extremely important because, well, one, people want to know who their collaborators are, right? So I consider myself a collaborator with the City of Newark.
Right.
And in being a collaborator, I have introduced myself to employees within City Hall. I have let it be clearly known exactly what I would like to do and bring to Newark and see if they can help me. And, just networking. I think it's something that's important, whether it's in the public sphere or the private sphere. And so in terms of getting things done, you really want these people to be on your side, right? You want them rooting for you. And they are able to see that it's a win-win across the board, right? So they get what they want in terms of their city initiatives. They get those completed through developers like me. It's a win-win across the board. It doesn't hurt to know a politician. Definitely doesn't hurt. As developers, our goal, I think, and some may not agree, but our goal really is to not only get our projects through, but to help make them look good as well in doing so. And, people may not be as upfront and say that, but that's essentially what it is. That's the type of relationship that it is. And they're going to root for you as long as you're doing things that meet the needs of their constituents.
I agree 1,000%. I'm actually also a designated developer for the City of Newark and East Orange, and I'm working on Ohio. And even in Ohio, not for nothing, for Newark, I worked with a couple of councilmen who I went to them. I said, this is what I want to bring back to Newark. I grew up in Newark, went to high school in Newark. This is what I want to do for my city. Now that I'm in this development space. And they were like, let's do it. And we're seeing the South Water of Newark change. We're seeing the whole entire Newark change before our eyes. To the neighborhood, lifting and they're, revitalizing and making their neighborhood pretty is definitely going to help them in their political space. And I do feel like there's a lot of great councilmen and women who really do care about preserving the culture of Newark. Mm-hmm. And 2, making sure Newark is being revitalized by the people of Newark. I think it's great. And I see I'm getting the same vibe in Cleveland, Ohio as well. Like those politicians or councilmen out there, they met with me during the pandemic. So that speaks volumes. They was driving me to land that was available, that is available, schools that are abandoned. And that just speaks volumes to me. Like I wouldn't meet with nobody during the pandemic. We broke bread, we hugged, we shook hands, and I thought that was amazing. So yeah, I think politics definitely goes hand in hand with real estate and development, and also economic development. It ties in to real estate development. I think we talked about funding projects. Now, you said how do you fund your projects? I don't think we answered that specifically. Well, you go to banks, right?
Yes. So I've actually used hard money.
Okay.
For my development deals.
Okay.
And I have used conventional financing for my buy and holds.
Awesome. Awesome. So I think, some of our listeners may want to know, I know I'm going to talk about this in the future in even more detail, like what they look for, what their calculations are. But typically, from what I gathered, and things have changed during COVID and probably from when you did your last deal or even maybe during the deal you're doing now. But I do know they typically look for a decent spread. So like 60, maybe 65% of the ARV. Some lenders may do up to 75, but not so much anymore after the coronavirus has came along. So that's good to know.
I supplement with, private lending. So for example, I've hit the Bank of Mom a few times.
That's good.
And then, like I said, I have 401k that I've tapped into several times and personal loans that I've taken out as well, just to kind of fill those gaps, whoever they may be.
Right.
So I've definitely had loans from family members to help me if I need them.
Awesome. And what skills do you think you developed during your real estate development journey?
I would say the number one was patience. Patience, because with development, like you can only plan, you can plan an entire project, but any number of things can delay your project. So patience, having the patience to stop if you have to and pivot, reassess, come to some resolutions, and then decide on what the next step forward would be and keep moving, right? So patience is definitely one of them. But I will say, though, that in terms of skills that I already had, which were transferable, I actually work in big pharma currently. And so I work on clinical trials.
Okay.
And what my role is really is a clinical trial manager. And in that role, I have to bring people together, teams together, get these clinical trials up and running, identify who the team members are that should be getting certain tasks completed. It's like a project management role in a way, but on the clinical side. Right. We have to budget, we have to identify financing from other departments. Mm-hmm. We have to work according to timelines. We have a lot of deliverables. And so as someone who is responsible for the operations of a particular clinical trial, I would say that those skills definitely came in handy when stepping into development and having to, hire GCs and other subcontractors if necessary, putting my timelines together, my development budget together, speaking to the correct or, the right people for a particular thing. So those are things that I was familiar with already in my day-to-day, which is good.
Awesome.
And if I can just add that development does not require formal education. And that's the beauty of being a developer, right? It's something that you can decide to do no matter what industry you previously worked in or did not. And you can develop those necessary skills by, doing your homework, educating yourself, speaking to the right people, networking, etc. And so if someone feels that they don't have the right skills, they can develop them. They can work on them, identify what they are, identify what your strengths are, recognize what your weaknesses are, and then have someone fill that gap.
Agreed. I totally agree with that. Delegation is important because you can't do everything. And in many cases, if I could delegate a whole project, I will. Because sometimes I'm even at the point where I don't think I'm going to do any more rehabs anymore. Like, it's just, it's not for me.
It's funny you said that because I skipped that step. Like I didn't want to do rehabs because it gave me the icks. Like I just, mm-hmm. I don't know. I didn't want to walk into anybody's building or house and try to figure out what I just didn't. So I made a contradicted choice not to renovate at all. And so what are your reasons for not doing rehabs? If I'm just curious.
I'm just open. No, honestly, it's a lot of hiring and firing. Even if you are in control as the GC, I'm not banging hammers, and my fiance can't do everything. So you have to hire subs, and sometimes they just don't do the work. They're half stepping, and I need everybody to match my energy or my fiance's energy. So I just know that if it's not something where I literally just have to replace floors or a bathroom just to give it a facelift, or a kitchen just to do a facelift, I don't want no parts of it.
Yeah.
Going forward, I'll only be doing land development. I have a business plan where we'll be doing prefab modular homes, and we have a company that'll take care of it and deliver it, and that's it. And it's probably a cheat sheet or a cheat code, but it is what it is. At least we're doing something with the land. We're putting people from our community in the homes. We're making sure they can get the homes. They're going to get affordable home loans and all that great stuff. That's all I really care about, is the production, putting the product out quickly and keeping it moving. And some of these rehabs, you'll be stuck in there for 5 months, 6 months. Where do you see yourself going with real estate? What's your 5-year plan? Or where do you see yourself in 5 years?
So I have a strategic plan that I actually need to go back and take a look at and probably revise it. I really would like to get into commercial real estate development at some point, but for right now, I am okay with staying in a small residential space, just continue to do infill development. There's so many vacant lots in just, this area alone that I can just really, play around with, see how many I can get. But, I haven't really put a specific number of properties or a specific dollar amount as to where I want to be in 5 years, to tell you the truth. So, I need to really take another look at my strategic plan. What I can say, though, is that although I'm very, again, thankful that I have been fully employed this entire time, I really would like to step into development full-time.
Awesome.
So hopefully that will occur if I really plan properly. That will occur within the next 5 years. That would be great.
Awesome. And I know you could do it, and you will do it. So I think that's amazing. I love that goal. I need to even tap into my strategic 5-year plan as well. I do know the amount of houses I want to build, but I feel like I need to really orchestrate how I'm really going to get there. Anybody can say, yeah, I want to do 1,000 of this or 2 of that, but what are the actual steps it's going to take for me to get to that level in the next 5 years? So we'll be doing our business plans all over together, because I need to set realistic goals. And that's in every business or every part of real estate that I'm in. I think realistic goals have to be set. Even if I need to, as a realtor, let's say, if I'm trying to get 10 listings every year, how many people do I need to call, or how many people does my assistant need to call to help me get to that goal? So I think that's definitely wise. This was great.
Yeah, it was. I had fun.
Me too. We have to do it again. We have to meet in person soon. You are working on a project that I'm definitely looking forward to seeing in its entirety and in its completion. I'll be stopping by the job site whenever you let me know. It's okay.
We should be back up tomorrow, actually, if you have time tomorrow, or any other day this week. That should work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'll definitely check it out. We'll get a vlog at some point together, and maybe once it's done, we can even do a walkthrough so we can see the progress of your project. Thanks for being my first guest on Journey to DevelopHer. And again, as I stated before, I'm really going to take people on the journey of my real estate experience, but also on the journey of other men and women's journeys, right? So everybody has a different journey of how they got into real estate, how they became a developer. I'm here to showcase that. Narelle, tell us the name of your company.
New Age Investment Properties is the name of the company. That's also where people can find me on Facebook, New Age Investment Properties, and on Instagram, New Age Props.
Awesome. And she's definitely been posting a lot of content on land development. So I encourage everybody to check that out. And, there's a lot of great tips and pointers on there. And do you have any last advice for anyone looking to become a real estate developer?
Yes, I would say it's okay to start small. A lot of people think that they can just jump in and do a really large deal, and maybe they can because of connections that they might have, but they really need to assess, do they have the education? Do they have the appropriate skill set to really bring a project like that to fruition? And it's okay to start small, learn, make your mistakes, put one foot ahead of the other, and just do it that way. It's not about the quantity. It's about really the quality of the product. And I would like to say that I think that what sets us apart, and I put you there too, Dionte, is the fact that, we're putting products on the market that people really would want to live in, enjoy, have families in, build themselves up in, and not move, right? And so that's really what I take pride in, being able to do that. And I think that anyone who is thinking of becoming a developer, they can start small and still achieve that goal.
Agreed. And I always tell people, never put out a product that you yourself cannot live in. Every product or every apartment or house that I rent or I show or whatever, if I can't live there myself, or I feel like my daughter can't walk barefooted on the floor, I would never put that out to another person's family. So as developers, I think I read on your page, and I know this is a part of my plan as well, is to offer affordable luxury houses, right, in our communities. So again, I'm looking forward to collaborating, hopefully, but just seeing your project come to pass.
Great, thank you.
All right, well, it was great. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Dionte. You too.
All right. Bye.